Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Black Voice Hertfordshire community meeting. Our speakers tonight are Angela Clarke, introducing RAFFA; Becky Blackwood, understanding division within the Black community; Rudy Page, identity and the Black community. Some really good topics here today. To find out more about the Black Voice Hertfordshire community meeting, Black Voice Letchworth, donation information and service provided, please visit our Facebook page or email blackvoiceletchworth@gmail.com. Here are some house rules. Please remain muted at all times, apart from when you are contributing. Please use the virtual Zoom hand up button to give notifications that you would like to contribute or write your question / comment in the chat box. Due to the specific nature of this space, please refrain from using any and all known unknown ethnic group acronyms and words. Please wait for contribution to end before you contribute. Raised voices over your contribution is not permitted. Please do not swear or use foul language. Please place all contact information, events, projects of your organization, etc., that you wish to share in the chat. Our social platforms include Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn under the name Black Voice Letchworth, and on Twitter with the username BlackVoice1. Our website is www.blackvoiceletchworth.com, and our contact number is 07581 720032. Our email address is blackvoiceletchworth@gmail.com. I will now hand over to Angela Clarke. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the Black Voice Letchworth platform this evening amongst esteemed colleagues and guests, so thank you. I'm here to introduce to you RAFFA International Development Agency, which is a charity that has been in existence now for some 15 years, certainly as a registered charity. It is a charity arm of the Church of God of Prophecy that's based in Birmingham but has a national reach. And I would describe RAFFA as the bridge the bridge that connects the church and the community. RAFFA stands for Renewal, Advancement and Financial Freedom Autonomy, and supports and engages with organizations, individuals and groups on a regional, national and international level to support and embrace the challenges and opportunities that are associated with development of communities. We do this, as I said, both in this country, in the UK nationally, but also internationally. We're here to support organizations and individuals to enhance their communities. So to get involved in what's happening in their communities, we address inequalities, primarily health inequalities, social inequalities. We are about social justice. We encourage individuals within their communities to get involved in things that are happening to improve and enhance. On an international level, we respond to disasters. So if there are disasters in any country that we feel that we can support, we will launch appeals, primarily because of the fact that we do have the link with the churches, and the Church of God of Prophecy is an international church. We aim to support where we can have a direct impact on individuals in the various countries. So for example, where we've had the flooding in Jamaica, where we've had the hurricane in the Bahamas and other various disasters that you may have been aware of, certainly over the last 15 years. Rudy Page, who is on the platform, I can't go without mentioning Rudy, because Rudy, I would say, was the person who spearheaded RAFFA, used it as a vehicle to impact many people, both in the public and private sector. I would say that his influence and his inspiration has enabled us really to build on the fantastic work that he has done. So some of the things that we are currently doing with regards to our collaborations with the Home Office and the NHS has been spearheaded by Rudy initially. And when I took over from Rudy, the phenomenal work that he had done actually gave me quite a good platform to continue that work. Some of the work that we have done historically, and certainly that Rudy, again, has been involved with, was the blood mobiles, the blood and organ donation mobiles that were donated from this country to other countries, such as Jamaica, such as St. Lucia, Haiti, and other places. And it was interesting that in Jamaica, a colleague of mine went to visit the areas where the blood mobile, after many years, is still operating and still impacting communities and still enhancing the lives of people abroad. So the legacy that has been left on that is still ongoing and still impacting lives. We have supported many, many countries, as I have said. And what we want to do is really to enhance the work of the things that are already happening in communities. So where there are projects that are already happening, already in existence, we will provide additional support. We will provide skills, our knowledge, our transferable skills to enhance what is already happening, to improve and raise awareness and increase the reach. We also, with the work that we do for the NHS, and more currently, we are working on the blood and organ donation work with regards to the inequalities that Black people face because of the lack of donors, because of the lack of Black donors primarily, and raising awareness about that, and actually providing education and information, especially when the law changed and people were automatically opted into organ donation. We felt it was important that we provided the information for individuals so that they could actually make the informed decisions about what they did with regards to those areas. One of the things that for me is quite fundamental is actually taking to the platforms of the churches the issues that they wouldn't normally talk about and wouldn't normally discuss, because the church is the community is the church, and the wider community also need to be made aware of what's happening. So we use the platforms of the church to actually raise awareness of the important issues like blood and organ donation. Another area that we have over, I think since 2018, maybe even before that, but certainly primarily since 2018, is collaborated with the Home Office to raise awareness about the situation with regards to the Windrush scandal. Many of you would have been aware of the situation that many people have faced trying to prove their right to be in this country. Again, RAFFA has worked tirelessly to raise awareness in this area. We have certainly over the last 2 years worked across the country with supporting the Home Office with their surgeries, going into the churches, bringing it into the churches to raise awareness, to encourage people who may be described as hard to reach, because we know that sometimes people will go to churches as a place of refuge, but encouraging them to get support, just informing them about the information and support that's available to them to help them to prove their right to be in this country. We have seen some successes. In fact, we've seen lots of successes. We have seen people who have been able to get that support to enable them to get their nationalisation in the country. We've actually successfully helped people to apply for the compensation, which is now available, and continue to raise awareness about that so that people actually know what is available to them. And we have actually specifically and directly helped people in that area. And we continue to do so. Other projects that we have collaborated with is with health regarding their Better Health campaign more recently, recognizing again the disparities within our communities with our health, the high levels of people with diabetes, people with heart conditions, high blood pressure, and all of those things. So what we have done over the years is hold symposiums, awareness raising campaigns about how people can look after themselves better. I know that certainly when we worked in the early days, when initially when I worked with Rudy, we worked with the British Heart Foundation and went across the country raising awareness about heart health, finding innovative ways of actually engaging people, especially young people who were who came together with a choir and went across the country singing, raising awareness about the importance of heart health. And within the choir itself, we had people who had the lived experience of having heart problems. So you know, it was getting the community to actually get involved in what was happening and just raising awareness about that. More recently, with regards to Black History and Windrush Day, we have got involved in raising awareness about Windrush Day, specifically in June. We have also supported the Reed Society with their Windrush Thanksgiving Day, and we will continue to do that and celebrate that, which is the first Sunday after the Windrush Day on the 22nd of June. It will be the Sunday after that, and encouraging families to come together to actually talk, have those discussions about what Windrush actually means to them. Prior to us actually coming on here, Sonia was talking to us about Windrush and said, did we realize that Polish people were actually on the HMS Windrush? We were aware of that. And those are things that, you know, people wouldn't necessarily know, but if you do your history, you understand that it wasn't just Caribbeans. There are a whole raft of people that came over on that ship. But if you don't talk about it, if our intergenerational discussions don't take place, then we don't transfer our legacy, and our young people won't know what is happening. So RAFFA does I would say a multitude of things, but primarily our role is to enhance the lives of individuals, groups, organizations, and communities at large. We want to have safe and vibrant communities. We want to engage our young people so that they actually care about the community that they live in, that they play an active part in the work that goes on. We want to also meet people at their point of need. So, you know, where there is poverty, for example, you know, we will send barrels, we will send food, we will send goods. We have been able to send medical equipment across the globe, really, working collaboratively with others. From the perspective of the Church of God of Prophecy, I know that they work with compassion, and RAFFA has been very instrumental in the work that have been done with compassion and improving the lives of children across the world, and sponsoring 100+ children, you know, making sure that contributions are made to their education, to their spiritual growth, to their physical you know, and mental you know, well-being. So the work that we are doing it's vast. It surprises me how much we can actually achieve with the number of people that we actually have within RAFFA to make it happen. But we do rely very much on the community, which is why it is important for me to come on platforms like this and raise awareness about the work that we do. Partnership for us is very, very important. Collaboration too is key, because without, you know, people like yourselves on this platform, we wouldn't be able to make the fundamental difference that we do to people's lives. You know, for us, it is about making sure that we leave a legacy behind, and that the legacy is made up of people like you and I, you know, everyday people who are passionate about the improvement and the enhancement in the lives of others. For us, because we are the charity arm of a church, the spiritual well-being also is paramount. So what we are doing is the practical application of what God would want us to do, loving our neighbor as ourselves. So that is fundamental and key to what we do on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure that my 10 minutes are up. There is so much more that I could tell you about RAFFA. And I suppose publicly, I want to thank Rudy for the work that he has done. You know, I had to stand on his shoulders, and yeah, and he has been a fantastic mentor. And I want to publicly thank him, because it was him that actually got me involved in RAFFA. I was busy doing youth work, doing things in the church, and had it not been for Rudy, I wouldn't really be involved in the way that I am now. And being CEO of RAFFA, I am able to continue to use it as a vehicle to enhance the lives of the people in the communities, and I continue to do that for as long as I can, until my successor takes over from me and the legacy continues. So I ask you, to pray for us. Unfortunately, at the moment, our website seems to be down, but our social media handle is at RAFFA Worldwide. So if you go on there, you'll be able to see some of the work that we have done. And I will leave it in the chat as well. And I would like to thank Black Voice Letchworth for inviting me on, really to give you a snapshot of the work that we are doing. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Angela. Beautiful. Thank you. Do we have any questions of Angela?
If we can hold off for questions at the end, if that's
okay. All right then. That's no problem.
Is it possible that I can just say one thing, Sonia?
Yeah.
Because I can see Daphne Higgins is on the line, and I would like to. Daphne is the wife of the National Overseer of Guyana, and we are just about to embark on a project to help them. So I just wanted to publicly welcome her. So thank you for joining, Daphne, all the way from Guyana. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's right. All right, I'm going to welcome Becky Blackwood, whose talk is going to be Understanding Division Within the Black Community. Hello, Becky.
Becky, are you there? I was hoping she was under another name. I let in. Calling for Becky.
While we're waiting for Becky, then we'll move quickly on to Rudy Page, whose talk today is going to be Identity and the Black Community. Hello, Rudy.
Good evening, Sonia. And good evening to everyone. Thank you very much, Angela, for the testimonials. Thank you. And Michaela, thank you very much for inviting me in the first place onto this new forum for me. And I'd just like to, just before I go into the few words I've got to say, just quickly about myself. So by background, my professional background, I specialise in policy implementation. So I work a lot in the NHS, have done for the last 20 odd years plus. I've got a regeneration community economic development background as well. Within the NHS, I work on the system side. So I do ministerial appointments and the most senior NHS leaders, do similar work with the Ministry of Justice in terms of ministerial appointments. And so I'm heavily involved in the vaccine awareness program that's going on through NHS England and other local agencies. And then going back 40 years, many of you would have heard of Dyke and Dryden, heard of the show Afro Hair and Beauty. So many moons ago, I was the sales and marketing manager for Dyke and Dryden. I came up with those three words, Afro Hair and Beauty, and actually put together the original show that was founded at the Grosvenor House 17th and 18th of March 1983. And I know you're all saying that you look much too young to go back that far. And the scary thing about it, as I changing the subject slightly, my colleague Derek Clement, we're also business partners. During Black History Month, we were speaking in schools to the young people from all backgrounds. And the scary thing was that not only were obviously the students were not alive at the time, but also the teachers themselves weren't alive at the time, which was quite alarming in terms of how long we've been around. But you know, it was good fun. And going back to Angela's point, it's really important to share the legacy, share the understanding. We can't blame young people for not knowing things if there hasn't been that generational passing of the baton. And with our work in terms of youth development work, we talk about young people need somewhere to go, young people need something to do, young people need someone to show them how. And they're the principles in a lot of the work that we do locally and internationally. So yeah, so I'm well experienced across the public, private, voluntary and faith sectors and the diaspora movement as a whole. And you'll see the symbol below our logo, Making Connections Work. You'll see the symbol of the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent, which I'm one of the authorized promoters of that and the sharing of the learning behind that. And what that is actually about, it has 3 objectives: recognition, justice, and development. And so very quickly, so recognition in this sense from the UN International Decade for People of African Descent is to promote a greater knowledge of the respect for the diverse heritage, culture, and contribution of people of African descent to the development of societies. Under justice, to adopt and strengthen national, regional, and international legal frameworks in accordance with the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action and the International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, and to ensure their full and effective implementation. And then under development, to strengthen national, regional, and international action and cooperation in relation to the full enjoyment of economic, social, cultural, civil, and political rights by people of African descent and their full and equal participation in all aspects of society. And as Angela outlined just before me, she was really talking about the most practical elements of that. So how do you translate that big message at the top of the world structures into our neighborhoods? And one of the things with RAFFA, just before the Olympics, the London Olympics, there were programs of excellence. So RAFFA was awarded the Inspire Mark, and the theme was passing the baton to inspire inclusive, peaceful, caring, and enterprising neighborhoods. So much of what Angela's outlined, you can still see that legacy continues from 2012. So in terms of my subject matter this evening, and I'm in a sense, I was pleased that I was asked by Michaela for this subject, because it's very much inherent in the work that I do within the system and across communities. So I've just got a few words to say, and I'm happy to answer questions afterwards. So thank you, Michaela, once again. I'm pleased to be involved in this forum to provide my perspective from over 40 years of professional and personal involvement within the area of identity and the Black community. In my few minutes, I will share some thoughts based on my lived experience and studies as a child of the Windrush generation, born in London with parents from Montserrat and Jamaica. I've travelled to the Caribbean and Africa many times for work and leisure. So Black may tell someone how you look, but it does not describe who you are or your identity. I repeat this point. Black may tell someone how you look, but it does not describe who you are or your identity. Notable historians have said that identity is related to land of origin, history, and culture. And it's those bonds that have been inherited through family, friends, are a source of hope, strength, and resilience for all people. The reality is that black is the prevailing colour for describing people from African descent, even with a mixed heritage. So who could have been born anywhere in the world. So from my personal experience, the values of respect and inclusion are the common ground for all of us, regardless of background and status. I'll stop there.
That was wonderful, Rudy. Thank you very much. Right, Becky, are you here?
I think we're still having issue with contacting Becky. I'm still trying my best, and when she does manifest, I will note it to you, Sonia, so you can start with questions and discussions.
Okay then, right. For Becky and Rudy, we're going to open the floor. Do we have any questions we'd like to ask of them?
You mean for Angela and Rudy?
Sorry, I mean Angela and Rudy. Sorry, Angela. Angela?
Yes, I'm here.
My first question to you is that my late mother-in-law helped build the Miracle Church of God in Bedford in Christ.
Wow.
She's one of the founding members.
Mm-hmm.
They built the church in the 50s, brick by brick.
Oh.
And that generation, as you say that, and it's really important because when the Windrush scandal broke, that was one of the first concerns that we had, was that we thought it was important for the church to play a role in doing some work around putting some of those issues that had gone wrong, to put them right. So the Home Office, as Angela alluded, that they've helped a lot of people around the country. We contacted them and agreed that they would run information, advice and guidance sessions after the church services on the Sunday, because that's when most of the people, of course, would be in the church.
That's right.
Initially, they were reluctant, but the insistence was, it's that if you want to reach people where they are, then, you know, from a system point of view, we need to adjust, because trust and confidence, and public trust and confidence is essential.
It's
one of the things another thing that we did do, following on from that with the celebrating Windrush, we had a series of celebration services around churches entitled Hope is Contagious. What that allowed us to do was to actually go to the various churches and to hear the stories and the experiences, the lived experiences of those people who came over in the 50s and what they actually faced. I remember, I think it was a service, we have been to Bedford as well, but I remember specifically one of the services that we went to in Birmingham, and listening to one of the elders talk about when they first came over and went into nursing and the you know, what they faced, and you know, it's, and this is and the struggles actually, and also the fact that it was a church. If it wasn't for the church, it was a church that kind of gave them the hope. It kept them together. It, you know, they had the church in their front room. The front room was everything. It was the bedroom, the kitchen, the church. It was everything. So when I hear you say that they built it brick by brick, yeah, that hope and that determination that generation had is, you know, it is definitely why we are able to do what we do today, why we are able to do the things that we do, because of that legacy.
It is, because since then They bought houses where they house the homeless. They do a soup kitchen. And then I came across a Harry Seacombe program, and the church choir was on there singing. And it just brought back such beautiful, beautiful memories. So yeah, I mean, because many of the men in the choir fought for the king, and the women who were nurses who kept answered Lord Kitchener's call for help. Your country needs you. They came to help build England up. You know, so I salute all of them, because I know the sacrifices many have made. Many have made, and I'm, you know, we would not be here if it wasn't for them.
So Claire,
thank you. And you know,
Claire, is it Claire that's got her hand up?
We've got Chris. I think Chris had her hand up first, and then is it Claire? Does someone else have their hand up? Sorry, I'm just looking.
Just Chris, I think. See it. I can see
it. Chris. Chris Kell. Hi, Chris. Go ahead.
Hi. I've already learned a lot that I didn't know, and I didn't know about RAFFA at all. So it's been going quite a while. It does fantastic work. Can I ask about funding? As with all organisations, it's often hard to get funds. Did it start with a church as an institution, or did it start with individuals giving money? Has that changed over the years? Are you getting any sort of organisational money from any British institutions? I'm just intrigued how you keep going and developing.
Well, Rudy, I don't know if you want to, in the early days, how you started.
I'll give the early days.
Yeah, and I'll give the more recent.
And then the baton handed to the younger generation. Right, in the early days, it really was, it was about meeting the humanitarian needs. So Church of God of Prophecy at the time probably had 60, 70 churches across the country. As Angela mentioned, it is part of a global church. And in fact, it had actually started 2 charities previously. So the support for its charitable work primarily started from within the church, so from the members of the church, and then it would produce programs and sort of birth other charities to then deliver services for which they would be paid as part of being, you know, service delivery contracts. So in fact, RAFFA was the 3rd charity. So the first one was Nehemiah Housing Association. And in fact, Nehemiah Housing Association is still one of the most well-led, successful housing associations in the country, housing at least between 4,000 and 5,000 people between Birmingham and Wolverhampton. Then the second one was called Black Boys Can, XL3, started as a mentoring program for youngsters who would achieve certain level of qualifications, but there was a gap of how do you keep them in university once they're there. And they've gone on to run a school, a 700 pupil school, King Solomon Business School in Birmingham. And then the 3rd charity was RAFFA, which I was responsible for getting up and running. And again, that was from within, and the church itself was a catalyst for it to get up and running. And then we were basically service providers, NHS related community economic development activities, international activities. And that was the way that income was generated. And in terms of, as Angela outlined, the delivery of so many program of activities, you know, winning the Inspire Mark from LOCOG for the 2012 Olympics, it definitely was about being spiritually led, because if you actually read on paper what the agency has done, you'd say there's no way could that be done physically, and the amount of money that would be needed. So there's something about having that spiritual background of the church and support around the church. And then people with vision and commitment, you know. Many people, Angela, people like myself with the professional qualifications believe that, you know, we have to make a personal commitment as well as using our professional skills within the context of serving the community, as I mentioned, regardless of background and status, but we do understand where the inequalities are, and we should, you know, contribute to addressing those.
And Chris, what we didn't want to do was to be like so many organisations where the work that we do is dependent and reliant on funding, so therefore it's not sustainable. It was important for us that whatever we did was sustainable. If we were going to leave a legacy, it would have to be sustainable. Hence why the majority of the work that we have done has been voluntary. We have relied on people within the communities, as Rudy has said. We've given of our time, and the people that have donated their time and efforts, and projects have been born out of that. So the sustainability has, it has been built. The legacy is building. More recently, we have applied and been successful in receiving funding, both from the Home Office and the NHS. But again, as I said, it's not, I'll work with the Home Office. It will not cease when the funding ends. We will continue to raise awareness about the inequalities that people face. We will continue to raise awareness about the disparities in health and what that means for our people in the community, and continue to educate them so that they themselves and the younger generation coming up can make those significant changes, and we can become preventative with regards to the inequalities that people face. So the success has not been based on funding, but it has been based on passion, and it's been based on drive, and it's been based on the sheer hope and faith that we have, the God-given faith, let me say, in wanting to make a definite difference to enhance the lives of others.
And can I just interrupt and say, we mustn't forget the old-fashioned partner and the word a tithe, the 10th of your salary. That's where, yeah. So you know.
Actually, as you mentioned that, we did contribute to the building of a computer center at a school in Jamaica, St. Elizabeth, if I can remember, and that was done as a partner. One of the members of the church is a West Bromwich church in the Midlands, and she had a program called Mary Seacole, she called it, and she came from that area and she wanted to do something for the school. So we came up with the idea, have a partner. So the hand was actually called Mary Seacole. So, and whenever it got to Mary Seacole's hand, that money went to the school, and they had a relationship with a local builder who just did the building, did the work based on, the part of the money. You can go to that school and, it's still there. It's great. It's just simple collaboration, really.
Yeah, and that has, and that's good that you say that, because St. Elizabeth is where my parents are from, or certainly where my mother was from. So it's good to do that. But we have since gone on to impact other places and communities in not just Jamaica, but other countries with IT equipment, IT suites. Various countries have benefited, and that's been from the donations in this country from schools. And I know, Rudy, you were very instrumental in helping us with desks and chairs from a school, and we've had that, that from schools across the country, where we then ship them across.
And that's a great point. We did attract a lot of computers. At one time, I stopped counting, but we'd had over 200 computers that we had been donated. Imperial College London donated minimum 200 desks. Yeah. Minimum. And there were probably more than that from Imperial. and other organisations as well, local authorities, Birmingham City Council, a whole van load of computers that went over to Africa, to Ghana and Nigeria.
That's wonderful.
So there's a lot of community support just to individuals.
Thank you for your comments, Chris.
Oh, can I put you? Okay.
Does someone want to ask a question? So Elijah?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay, it's not Elijah, it's Juliet. As you're talking about voluntary support, I do remember when the Olympics, when Rudy came along to our local church and was boosting that we need to go out there to take water for the people, and I thought that was an excellent idea. But at the same time, I was wondering, where does he get the money from for all that water? But that was an excellent idea. That's all I wanted to say.
And if I can, and it's interesting that you should say that, because obviously we have the Commonwealth Games that will be taking place in Birmingham, and what we'll be meeting with partners to basically talk about how we actually distribute Bibles throughout the Commonwealth to those who are coming in from the Commonwealth countries. So yeah, so it's not water this time. We're going to be talking about Bibles. So yeah, so we would need volunteers to help us with that in that area.
The water of life.
But it was essential for the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? I think maybe it can spin off to both Angela and Rudy. I was just wondering how, with identity within the Black community, how important do you think the element of faith is? I mean, I've asked this question before, previous, but I do like other people from the community's take on it. How important do you think faith is in our community, and in our, not just in the community, but our identity as Black people? Is it something that you think that we can do without, especially thinking back to our historical history, especially with Britain? How important is that element, or was that element, to those who've come before and those who are present now?
Should I go first, Angela? Because
you can go first. I'm okay with that. I'll follow.
A system response. I know you're going to have a great faith response. Yeah, no, our spiritual well-being is essential. That really gives us the hope and the resilience. And why I'm saying it in this way, because a few years ago I wrote the report Battlefield of the Mind, Faith and Spirituality in the Mental Health Services. And so we know spiritual care is an essential, spiritual well-being, belonging, particularly if you're living in an environment that is pretty hostile to you. So the faith is essential. It's the cornerstone of the hope and resilience, and the confidence that still is within the community. And go back to my point where I said that Black may tell someone how you look, but it does not describe who you are and your identity. So spirituality, faith are integral to that understanding of self. And if we had more time, we would have gone much deeper. I just wanted to touch the surface today.
If I could just have a response to that as well. My local church, who I go to, Faith and Hope Ministries, who are on, so thank you for the support. We had a youth service on Sunday, and it was the theme of it was that the theme was prayer is the key, faith is the link, and hope is God. And one of the young people in the presentations that they gave, it was interesting that They talked about, one said that faith builds character, but the other one talked about likening faith to Wi-Fi. You can't see it, but everyone needs it. You know, if we didn't have Wi-Fi, we couldn't be on this platform. So, you know, is faith important? Yes, it is. It is fundamentally important. It is faith that brought our foreparents through. It's faith that for many of us, it is faith that we have relied on to bring us to where we are. So, Michaela, is it important? I feel that it is fundamentally important. And I think especially now, with the situations that we face, I've already talked about the inequalities, and I haven't even started on the mental health situation, the situation of situations affecting our young people. Faith is going to be fundamentally important. We see that those who have faith, you know, they have hope in something, so they have something to hold on to. If you have no faith, then that is when you see the devastating effects of, you know, people taking their own lives, you know, people not having any way, you know, what did Rudy say? Young people need something to do. They need somewhere to go, and they need someone to show. They need somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to show them how. If you don't have faith, there is no way that you can actually inspire anyone. You know, it's my faith that keeps me going. It's the faith that I have in God, the faith that I have to know that what I do is going to impact the lives of someone. And if it is only one, or if it is only two, then it's going to matter. One of our bishops at the Church of God of Prophecy, I heard that he said that if he only had 3 days left, he would want to make sure that 2 of them counted. And that is around faith. And that's how I feel. And that's what I want to inspire and empower our young people to have faith, you know, so that they can actually go on to do great things, to go on to do exploit, you know, to have the faith that there is nothing that is impossible, you know, as long, you know, and I fundamentally, so 100%, Michaela, it is important. And even those who don't have faith, it's important for us who do to share our, you know, our love, you know, our support, you know, to just be kind, love our neighbor as ourselves. That's all that we need to do, and that will inspire faith in others. I'm not preaching, by the way, I'm just saying.
But it's right. It's right. What you've said is right.
Have you, when you were setting up RAFFA, Angela, did you find, what hurdles did you find? I suppose, Rudy, I should say, and probably now, you're probably, I don't know, you maybe are, but I've personally, I'm a baby in this situation. I'm learning as I go from you fantastic guys. What I found some hurdles setting up Black Voice Letchworth. Is there any hurdles you found? And if so, what advice would you give to I don't want to say next generation, because you guys seem really young to me. I know you keep saying about, but to me, you look really young. You act as if you look really young, you know, black don't crack, but really.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, Rudy's already said that his daughter is 40. Well, my eldest son is 42. So
I don't believe it. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, what advice would you give to the next generation, or people who are considering doing what you do, and how do we motivate them to get into this kind of work?
Good question. I mean, what I say to young people, and I speak to young people in universities, colleges, schools, I first ask them, what are the issues that you want to address in your neighborhood? Now, the thing is, you will always find young people, and Angela knows from a few years ago when we were speaking to young people about issues that they wanted to address, that they do know what the issues are, and so they will get involved. So it's like a generational escalator. There's always going to be people willing to get involved. Now, organizationally, yes, you will. There can be challenges, and there were challenges around people's attitudes, and this is why determination, character, courage, faith are really important, because if you've identified a need that's going to address people's issues in a world where you see there's inequalities, you have to set clear objectives. And you do need to be entrepreneurial. Now, entrepreneurship is not just about money. It's about making best use of the resources that you have. So one of the things you can look at the resources, look at the people, look at the networks, even being on this platform tonight. There's, I'm sure you can get information and speak to people who have done it before. Your question represents that anyway. And what did you do when you got to this stage? So of course it depends where you are at, and then there's always somebody who can give you advice, but you have to be determined. You can't falter at the first one or two hurdles, or the people who don't believe what you're doing makes any sense, whether it be friends or family or so-called friends. We all have our families that we have, but you just have to be determined and focused. Yes, there are difficulties. There will be challenges around finance, but you can look at other things. There's always other things that can be done other than having to address that financial. At some point, you do have to generate, but I don't think that the initial purpose is about finance. It's about wanting to serve. And again, when you demonstrate that character and determination that you want to serve, you'll be surprised, or maybe not, how many people will come and assist. And I'm always saying to people, regardless of how bad things are, maintain your character, because there will always be somebody who will look at you and say, actually, I like the way you handled yourself in that situation. And because of that, I'm going to open a door for you. And I say that to staff within the system when they have challenges around inequality, unfair treatment. At the end of the day, you still have to maintain your character. You go to work, you do a good job, speak well with your team members, and conduct yourself. And in the end, you will win through. So that's some of the advice I could give you at this point.
That's good advice.
I would say, just to add to that, the challenges, it's about being relevant, being authentic. I think it's so important. There are lots of different organizations claiming to do so many things. Certainly what I've learned is not to reinvent the wheel. If someone out there is doing something and that is proven to work and be good, then collaborate, partner with people. You waste so much time and energy just trying to reinvent. There is no need to do that, but it's important to be relevant. It's important to be relevant, to make sure that getting on the platforms of others is a challenge. But I find that what Rudy said is so important. How you handle yourself, certainly in the public arena, how you react to things, how you behave. It will open doors for you if you do it in the right way, if you collaborate with the right people. Unity is strength, definitely, but fundamentally be your authentic self. And for young people, if you're trying to impact young people and you are not authentic and you are not relevant, then you have a problem. Your challenges are wider than they need be. So for me, I encourage people to speak up, because people, as Rudy said, that we have encouraged young people to talk about the things that impact them in their lives. Safeguarding for me is something that's so important. And with the world that we're living in, with things that are so impressionable, and they are so everything is so instant. It's pretty much like kind of the Wi-Fi. They want it now, it's available now, everything's here now, information. They can get all of that. So what is it that's different about RAFFA that's going to make people want to engage? is going to want to make volunteers come and help. You know, for me, it is about relevance. It is about authenticity. It is about collaboration. It's about all of those things. You will, you know, we all have challenges, you know, and the challenges, as Rudy said, are not just about money. It isn't about money, because we have proved, you know, as an organization, that so much can be achieved with so little, you know, and it is about the faith, the passion, the determination, but it is about the collaborations and the authenticity, definitely.
Okay.
Do you think identity in the Black community is under attack? And I open this to the floor, not just to Rudy and Angela. Is identity, that's a controversial question now, again, it's been nice and polite, too British, let's get it warmed up. Is identity in the Black community under attack worldwide? Opinions flow.
Very controversial.
I know.
Nigel, it looked like you wanted to say something, then I was waiting for it.
No, I mean,
sorry.
Ladies.
What I was going to say, sorry, I'm going to be very quick. What I say to the young people that I work with, when that we're confronted with that question, I always say the pen is mightier than the sword. Okay, over to you, young man.
I put you on the spot there, I'm so sorry.
I'm going to claim the young as my...
Yeah, exactly, the big smile. We can see the big smile.
I claim that as my identity, but I don't know, my comment would be that identity politics will and always be, right? That's just how human beings work, yeah? That's just the nature of human beings. However you identify, you're always going to have to struggle for power with someone with a different identity. So I think we all attack each other in that sense, because we're all trying to gain power from each other, right? That's, I think, human nature. But my question would be, and actually I was getting ready to address it to Rudy, was considering what you said about identity, about Black identity, it not being based on, you know, culture, roots and land, and considering that inequalities persist after decades and decades of anti-racist and equality legislation, do you think that the point has come for us to rethink the meaning of Black identity, or actually using a Black identity for people of African descent?
Well, that's a really good question. That's a good point. And I come down on the side of still is that because there's some people who've said that when you talk about just the color, that you end up on a ground of where's the consensus, that if you want to achieve a political or economic aim. And so when you think of Black, when you think of African people or people of African descent, there's a context in which we've been living in for so long. And so there's an identity that is slapped on us when you just say Black. And I know times change, because there was a time when Black in this country also meant people of Asian and Chinese and the wider origin of people, and that was to do with the pursuit of equalities. Whereas now, and I guess we're in this new era of Black Lives Matter, and we have to take that into consideration. And in a sense, it kind of speaks to the 2 points that were made before. What does that mean in terms of our humanity? And this is always one of our biggest concerns, because the term at some point was represented inhumanity. It represented a term of being able to treat people with inhumanity because of that description.
Yeah.
So I'm all for moving away to a point where we're respected as individuals, like everybody else, not asking for any special treatment, because we live in a society that when the minority voice comes up or says, well, actually, I would like to have a say about my condition, going back to your point about power, a strong voice will say, well, actually, you know, be grateful that we've let you in the room. So can you sit down, please? And we want to maintain the status quo. So it is a challenge. And then also within that, the challenge that we have within our own communities as well, because there's a, you know, socio-economic, intellectual background that you can have a ruling class within our community, we do have, and, you know, who think that they're actually better than other parts of the community and look down on them as well. And so, yeah.
Well, can I comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
If the floor would let me permit. I mean, the reason that we have a black bourgeoisie, as we call them.
Sorry, Nigel. I just wanted to say you're probably going to go on to it, and brilliant. We were supposed to have Becky talking on division in the black community. If anyone wants to contribute on that, please do, because it will still be a discussion, even though we don't have a speaker. We're still going to discuss on it. But Nigel, go ahead. Yeah,
I've done a lot of work in that area.
Okay.
So if we talk about divisions, I think divisions come because we don't have a shared identity, right? And there's some of us that come from the continent, and there's some of us in the diaspora, and we can't quite find the common ground of what to call ourselves or how to identify, even though we've all got roots in Africa, right? And so this is one of the functioning of the racial hierarchy, as I call it. And my worry is, just to come back on your comments, Rudy, is that the word black is always juxtaposed with white, right? And it's always sociologically constructed by whiteness as well. Yeah? So there's no real part in us building what it means to be black from the African experience, even though our roots are African. Yeah? So my hypothesis and proposition would be similar to Jesse Jackson in the 60s, when he made a big campaign to abolishing using the word black in favor of the word African American, where African denoted your cultural, economic, land, and birthright right. It acknowledged that and gave you a basis on which to build an identity.
Absolutely.
So you're, allow me to land, if you would. So your value systems, your epistemology is then coming from a source and a root that's outside of the racial hierarchy and whiteness. However, what I see in the community is people moving away from that and embracing what has been built and constructed and handed this to us. And that's why we see the problems and the disparities that we see, It's basically like turkeys voting for Christmas if we insist on holding on to this term that whiteness has constructed for us.
Right, okay, so the first part of what you said then is similar to what I said. Are we in agreement with that? I'm just making sure, because what you articulated was what I said.
I don't think we quite got to the point where I am advocating abolishing the racial hierarchy and color-based racial classifications, and you seem to be reforming them. I think we hold two different positions, unless I've read you incorrectly. Please correct me.
With the greatest respect, you may have, right? But because what I said was, black may tell someone how you look. And you touch on it because in that world, you can be blonde, blue, you know, you can be blonde, blue-eyed, with apparently white-looking skin and still be black, and you can be at the other end blue-black almost. So that's why I say black may tell someone how you look, right? But it does not describe who you are or your identity. So that's where we're now getting to the as you touched on, that I mentioned about the history and culture and land, and yes, and that's why from the UN level there's this big push about people of African descent because of what's happened in the last 300 years. And the reality is you've got people growing up all, you know, different parts of the world, and they reflect the culture. Many people are indifferent to where they historically may have come from, and you know, and that's not only people of African Caribbean descent, but you know, all others. But we're talking about in the context of people of African descent. So the first part, I think we were really saying the same thing, but your second part of what you were talking about, that is that challenge about the hierarchy when it comes to description of colour. And it's interesting that over the last few months, you know, we used to talk about BAME or BME. First of all, it was BME, Black and Minority Ethnic, and then it was BAME because powerful voices said, well, we know Black, Asian, Minority Ethnic. And then particularly within the context of Black Lives Matter, there was a reluctance, even that term BAME. And in fact, a lot of people don't realize, in fact, BME, from a policy perspective, people think it's just about people with black and brown faces. But if you actually read what the legislation says, it's people from, you know, all around the world. And it's not just people with black and brown faces. But the debate within this society, people feel it's just about Black and Asian people.
It's everyone that's
very challenging dialogue.
White, isn't it, Rudy? Everyone who's not considered Caucasian white.
No, not when you read this. There's a popular dialogue around that, but the reality is, no, it's not the case. Because if you look, in fact, I haven't got it, I could probably find it. But what I used to do when I used to do the talks to groups, I used to read out all the countries that who it refers to, and it's not just people with black and brown faces.
No. Is England on the list?
England?
Yeah.
No.
No, but I think the legislation does, it's meant to make room for other ethnicities.
Absolutely.
But again, those ethnicities have the backdrop of whiteness on them. That's why it's BME. It's white, and then the rest of them, yeah? It's white and non-white. And what I'm saying to you is that these are the foundations for inequalities, yeah? These are the ways in which we're socialized to see each other differently, and therefore our psychology and politics institutionally are because we've already programmed each other to look at ourselves as less than, right?
Yeah, and the term we use, is the barriers of being carefully constructed and protected.
So what I'm challenging the floor with is, why don't we get rid of these color descriptors, which are inhumane? I agree with you on that. They don't give us connection to our land and heritage. Let's just get rid of it, and let's identify ourselves the way in which we are, which is African, right? Surely we are the people of African descent, and it's the decade of people of African descent, but we've got African people who don't believe black people are African.
Exactly.
Nigel, Nigel, can I ask you, what do you think? I mean, in the youth probably like around the educated youth, like universities, the Black Lives Matter generation, let's just call them that. There is a new terminology coming around, which is global majority. So can I put that out there to the floor again?
You got Councillor Favour with a hand up, Michaela.
What? Oh, already Councillor straight away. The question is, what do you think about it? And people can, yeah. But
it's a
Nigel,
topic for discussion.
Yes.
Interestingly, it's not a colour-based description.
Should we go to Councillor Favour, because you
I will
hasn't
give way to the
contributed?
councillor, yes.
Yes, go, please go. Sorry.
No, thanks. I wasn't really jumping on the global majority definition. I was actually trying to respond to Nigel when he was saying about the definitions of people from African descent, and when Rudy was also defining what constitutes the so-called BEM categories. So I wanted to say that it's layered, actually, because at least from the public sectors I've worked in, people that are from Irish background are members of BEM, Chinese, Polish, they are all members of the BEM. So there are differential experiences from all these categories that form the so-called BEM category. For me, it's a political instrument, to be honest. And sorry, I'm saying that even though I'm in politics, but that's what it is. I totally agree with both of you that we need to begin to redefine ourselves and not just allow them to continue to define us. And we need to own what we define ourselves as. If we are people from African descent, so be it. Because after all, in America, they're all called African Americans, isn't it? It's only in the United Kingdom that we come here and they're calling us BEM. And I don't even know what that BEM means or look like. I'm a typical Nigerian and I remain a Nigerian.
And interestingly enough, it's not actually recognised. So the British government doesn't actually recognise the UN International Decade, because there was a question put down in House of Lords by Paul Boateng a few months ago. And because I wanted to know, well, where was the British government standing on it? And they said that the British government support the international consensus, but basically don't agree with it here in the UK, because they have this wider agenda as it relates to equality.
So I would agree with Councillor in that there's two things that worry me about this conversation. The first thing is that what are we without identities? That's first and foremost, right? So that question needs to be clear to me anyway, because actually I think good mental health comes from knowing that you're not any of those things, yeah? You're a child of God, if you want to call it.
Exactly, absolutely.
So I think that's fundamental. And when people understand that you can choose identities are transient, right?
Yeah.
You can move jurisdictions and these political categories change, yeah? So when you understand them in that way, then you're not so fixed on them, right? You're not so addicted to them. So when you're not addicted to identities, then you have the power to choose the ones that work for you. And so what I'm saying, that as a group, rather than letting the enemy define us, what are we going to define ourselves? What's best for our children to anchor them in culture, philosophy, epistemology, and economics that works for them? Yeah, what is it? And if you answer that question honestly, and I think even empirically, then we come to see actually that most cultures that perform well when they're dispersed from their indigenous land, keep a very solid element of connection to that land through culture. And if we don't teach our kids to identify with their African root, we're denying them the very source of their power.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really important that I think we start to think about how we can abolish this system. Because if you go to the Harmonization Committee at the the Office of National Statistics. You can lobby for them to call your group whatever you want. Yeah, Polish people done it when they came here. Asian people, they don't even have a color description in the hierarchy. They're called Asian. Yeah. So they said, no, we don't. It's only now they've come to this brown term. So what I'm saying to you and challenging all of us, like I do when I visit most of these types of meetings, and even in my own organization where we don't use the term black at all, I say, what is it that we really want to achieve as a people? What is going to get us there? And what are the identities that give us the power and the unity we need to achieve the results that we want? And that's all we need to focus on.
It's a fair point, but I think we do also have organizations and groups of people who understand that exactly as you're saying and pursue that. And it may not be apparent just because of, and we're not going to get into that too much tonight, is the media and the type of media that we have that bombards certain stereotypical ideas into our groups and doesn't necessarily allow the other voices. So we do have a challenge there. We do definitely have a challenge in terms of, can we keep our communities informed with confidence about their culture, their progression, their excellence, and can we recognize that when they do well, young people, can we recognize it as they're not being unique, that they have come from, a good stock, just like everybody else. So you're right, that we have that continual challenge. And that's why I mentioned about those unseen barriers that are carefully constructed and protected.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. But again, I see that defense of the self-definition is a protection against that, right? Because when you know who you are, who you belong to, what other people say about you and the lies that they tell.
Absolutely.
You have resilience against that.
Absolutely, Nigel. Look, I was born here a few years ago. Born here as in that's what
of course.
A young child of the Windrush generation. So when we were going to school, our generation, we were told to go back home. We didn't understand, well, what does that mean, because we were born here. But of course, and then from our parents' generation, forget about where we came from. You're here, we're here now, you're here now. But going back to the earlier point, it's only over time, generational time, that we've understood the importance of knowing where you belong, that sense of belonging, what it meant to the mental health, spiritual care. And then when we did start to go back to the Caribbean and understand and see our cousins who looked exactly like us, and your parents would say, well, this is where we came from. And then some of us were fortunate to go back to Africa and go to Cape Coast, Cape Castle, go through the door of no return and walk back through the door of no return and spend a lot of time with African people and realize actually there's a long line, that I do, we do come from somewhere. So your point is right. We've just got to keep teaching, supporting and promoting.
Can I ask another question to the floor? Apologies if it's controversial, but again, I'm for the hard questions because I think that they need to be asked. Now, between the Caribbean community and the African community.
No.
Go on, Michaela.
There are some challenges.
How about that one?
Already,
Go on, Michaela.
There are some challenges, but there's some good stories.
I'm asking it. It's going to be done. Right. The Caribbean and African community, is there division? And if so, how do we overcome?
There is division. It has been for a lot of time, eternal.
It's not as bad as it was before. In the past, it had a lot more to do, again, with conditioning, stereotyping, and then the lack of experience. I mean, 2 of my sisters are married to Nigerians. And there's plenty of mixed relationships. But if we just talk about stereotyping, that anyone can stereotype the other group, that can be challenging. But there are great instances of where we've worked well together. Now, Angela pointed out about the mobile blood collection units, the 4 that have gone: Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Lucia, and Jamaica. And that was a collaboration. If you put it down to individuals, that was relationships between African and Caribbean people collaborating. Yes, they had the churches, Redeemed Church and Church of God of Prophecy, who collaborated in terms of the church, but the individuals were Nigerian, Jamaican, St. Lucian. It was a mixture. So
would that have happened if it wasn't for the church? Now I know we've spoken, and I have to say, just for those online, we are completely aware at BVL that the Black community has a varied religion. We're talking about the Christian religion today because that's where contributors kind of are coming from. But we get that, you know, there are Muslims, there are pagans, there are others. Yeah. So we're not excluding anybody. But just historically, it has our support and the faith from our leaders and those we look up to. It has come from the Christian faith. So that's why it's vast on the Christianity today. I'm just wondering, if it wasn't for a mediator, the Christian church, as it were, in between, do you think the I hate to say the Caribbean community and the African community, because to me, in my mind, we're the same. We're the same. But I have experienced that not all, but some Africans do see me as different coming from the Caribbean. I don't really understand it. I have had it explained to me. I don't really understand it, but I'm just wondering where Africans and Caribbeans have worked together. Do they need a mediator, or can we just work together?
Yeah, no, we can work together. We can definitely work together. And the church wasn't a mediator; it just happened to be the place where we meet.
Right.
But one of the challenges we had in the 60s, 70s, and maybe into the 80s amongst Caribbean communities, because many of that generation had never traveled out of their country and hadn't met other Caribbean people until they really came to the UK. Yeah,
I think Councillor Favour had a contribution there.
No, I wanted to say thanks for the question, Michaela. It's a question that needs to be asked. And I the way you kind of summarized it, that you've kind of experienced people from African communities see you different, so to say, is the same way that some people from African community, when they meet people from the Caribbean community, see that they feel different as well. So it's both ways. That's what I'm trying to come to. But the next question is, should it really be so? But what I want to say is, there are differential experiences of migrations and even of origins and people's experiences in life, especially even people that are first generations and people that were born here and people who are second generations. Everyone come with their own different levels of experiences that influence the way they interpret the other person. Being a first generation Nigerian in Watford, I've had my own experiences of some of these things very well. Recently, we were kind of trying to work through, because we have Watford African Caribbean Association, and when I came, I was a few Africans that were in that association, so to say. So we were kind of working through, what do we do to bring the other parts, because it's Watford African Caribbean Association. So wanted to bring the other sides, so that all of us would be together, so to say. And so a lot of feedback came through as to why some people from the African community kind of feel different, and why some people feel that these people are different. A lot of feedback filtered through. But one thing I want to leave with us tonight is, it's so important that we begin to see each other as brothers and sisters, regardless of whether you come from the Caribbean continent or from the African continent, so to say. All of us are still coming from the same source. And until we do that, we'll not be able to fight collectively in where we are today. So we're actually doing ourselves disservice by saying this is Caribbean and this is Africa. All of us are from African descent. And even the stereotyping, we're all stereotyped together. When they refer to Jamaican, it's the same way they refer to a Nigerian. When the police stops us, they don't know who is who. This is the truth. So, so even in Africa, we have our own, you know, the way the West Africans look at the Southern Africans or the East Africans, you know.
You have Ghanaian jollof and you have
Ghanaian jollof fries, Nigerian jollof fries, Senegalese jollof fries. You know, you know, I used to work in Zimbabwe before, because I worked in Nigeria, I worked in Zimbabwe before I came here. And when we see Zimbabweans, they are different from us, Nigerians. You know how we are. You know how we are, Nigerians. You can tell.
I've just realized that difference, because I grew up like just Africa is the motherland. Oh, you know. And so when I meet every African from Africa, first of all, I had to get into I knew it was a continent, obviously, to learn that in school, but I had to literally get it into my head that continent, it just literally means country stuck together. So it's not going to be the same everywhere. So when you say Africa, don't expect someone from Nigeria to be the same as someone from South Africa and to be the same as someone from Rwanda or wherever.
So the colonial masters, the partitioning of Africa didn't do us any good either, because we were just ripped apart. We are calling it partitioning. That's what it is. We were just ripped apart. People ended up, you know, being completely different. Even within the West African, you see people that speak the French part are different from us. You know, people that speak Portuguese on the other side, Mozambique and all that, they are different from us. But we're all Africans. They just partitioned us the way they liked. Even Nigeria is a conglomeration of different nations that they call Nigeria. That country called Nigeria is a different discussion. Let's put it by the side.
That's right.
It's a very
You got Pastor Elijah, got his hand. Oh, Justin. Justin.
Elijah.
You got Justin there as well.
And Justin, yeah. Elijah first and then Justin.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Juliet.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's my fault. Sorry.
I'm listening to what we are talking about, the West Indian, Caribbean, African. But I don't know about anybody else, but what we read, what we were taught in school makes a difference. And what we were taught as youngsters about the continent of Africa, and if the truth is to be told, the way how it was written, perhaps the West Indian didn't want to be known as part of Africa because of how colonialism and what was written. And it is true. And as we come, some of us, as we come into the UK, and we've realized that they're the same as us. And so, because if we are honest, some of us used to say, I don't want to marry to an African. Let's be honest, because we are on the platform, yeah? But as we get to know individual, that is not the rubbish that we used to read about the Africans. So now that we know what we know, we need to get it together. Yes, now we know that, because it's really a means of separating us, because you know that's what it's all about. So now that we know, we've read, we've had the experience, we are interacting together, then we have to stop saying that is because of the colonialism and they were putting us you know, trying to for us to be arguing with each other and don't want to know each other. No, we have to stop that and go forward. That's all I have to say, really. Sorry.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, this has been a very, very good conversation. Very, very versatile, very broad, and and very good contributions, all of you. I'm going to touch on the BAME situation. and it is a political tool. I think, parties, the political parties, say the Conservatives, say, right, we need to find some kind of drive all the ethnic minority groups. We just put them all together and say we support you. That's it. BAME. We'll try and put that amongst work offices, have that within the legislation, and and in HR and all that kind of thing. And that's how it starts. Then we're talking about we're totally against. We might be totally against it, and then there'll be another group of people who will go into a political party that might be getting elected into government, and there'll be another thing to try and unite us and everything. So it will just never end. I don't think this kind of thing will ever end in terms of trying labeling us, because it just happens right from government, and they'll just have these people that think, oh, this will work for us, and we don't really have a say in it.
Do you think, when you say labeling, Justin, do you mean like just labeling a group, tie them to a struggle, and then we can use that struggle for political gain?
Could be that, but I think the government parties are just, we got to find some way of trying to unite the Black and Asian people. What can we do? We'll get some very, very good respected people amongst every single ethnic minority and talk together. But the rest of us in the public, we don't really have a say. It's just the people that are like lobbyists or maybe contributing towards their party. Yeah, we'll just pick him. And they'll be all sitting together, making some kind of initiative, some kind of drive. They'll go into HRs and HR company, all the companies, so we could we all follow this kind of thing. So it's just going to keep happening over and over again. It's just their way of trying to unite us, or try and somehow
control.
Try and get rid of racism. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's their way of doing it. Is it the right way? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right. Well, what these parties are doing, but it seems that way.
Do you think the parties of the UK? I mean, the main ones we're talking about, not the ones that Do you think they have the interests of the Black community at heart, or do you think that they?
Of course not. They want votes. That's what they want. Let's be honest. I'm waiting for the only person I think personally that actually would have cared about us is Corbyn. Because the minute Corbyn opened his mouth and said we need to start teaching the real history about Black people in this country, no chance. That's it. No one wants to vote for him. They all the Labour stronghold up north end up voting for Conservative. All right, there was the Brexit argument and everything. He was going to try and get another referendum, but that as well, that he had it with that one. No one is ready for that. This country is not ready for that conversation of re-educating the youth of the future, for at least to improve the situation that we are in terms of racism. Because at the moment they're just burying their heads in the sand and everything's hunky dory. Black Lives Matter. We're just moany Black people. But that's how I think how this country probably kind of sees us. I think in terms of. They didn't vote Corbyn. Simple as that. As soon as Corbyn said that, his campaign was over. I've seen the comments. It's poor. I've seen the comments. It was disgusting. Very racist. So,
Nigel, you have I think Nigel was next for.
Yeah, so I'd like to build on what Justine is saying. So, I agree with. I agree with the point that this country is not ready to face their colonial past, right? And to face the horrors of what they've done to African people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to very basics. There's only one way to unify people, and that's through identity. Yeah. It's called tribal psychology. If you go in the psychology field and the science around the way in which people connect, is because they have something to share, shared identities. So if I support Arsenal and I go to the football stadium for 90 minutes when I'm watching Arsenal, I'm connected with everyone else who supports Arsenal in one identity, right? And that is a unifying force. And so what happened, and actually I wrote a paper on this on my website, and I will try and share it before I jump off, is what has happened with the enslavement experience is that Africans from the Western region of the continent were socialized and educated to be British.
Yeah.
So now we have the British sensibility and the colonial mindset against the Africans who were still on the continent. Yeah. Initially, they called it seasoning. They beat it out of you, right? And then they socialized you to be part of the motherland, which is Britain, right? So my parents are from Jamaica. Both of them, they were second generation. Both of them will tell you, actually, the motherland wasn't Africa. The motherland was Britain. And before they come here, they really thought the streets were paved with gold. And when they came here and saw the snow and white people, they were shocked. They couldn't believe it, right? So this is a function of education, and there's only one way to reverse that. And that's through decolonization, a decolonized education system that educating towards a shared identity, which goes back to the earlier point of me saying the abolition of racial categories then gives us a focus point in which to educate people to as the unifying force for our people. And it's only us that are going to do that, yeah? Because it's not in the interests of the British state to educate Black people, so-called Black people, to the African, because then you're giving them a different nationality. That's not what the state will do. That's why it has to come from the ground up, has to come from community circles, and it has to come from meetings like this, deciding on our own that actually, no, this is where we come from, and this is how we're going to educate our children. That's what other communities do, yeah? Every other community, Chinese community, Jewish community, yeah? Polish community, Turkish community.
I think that's a very, very good point you made there, and because you have Greek schools as well, you have also right. But I know I can see this from a mile off. As soon as we have a Black school, why can't we just have an all-white school? I can hear that coming. Also, well, there is Greek schools, there's Jewish schools, there's all sorts of minority schools. So what's the problem? There's even Muslim-based schools.
Let me tell you this: we had in the 70s and 80s, we had the Black supplementary school movement, right? Teaching our children about Africa. They killed that system, right? And they killed that system because they knew how empowering it was for our children. Me too. If I didn't go to a Saturday school when I was young, I would have no literacy at all. I tell you that, right? So what I'm saying to us is that it is incumbent upon us to reinstitute those systems, but also decide on a curriculum and syllabus that we're going to teach people that unifies everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Now, let me just caution for a second, because when we start talking about national identities, right, we have to understand, as I think it's Sister Michaela said, Africa is not a national identity. In fact, African isn't really identity because we don't have a United States of Africa yet. Yeah. What we have is Nigeria, Ghana, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, Tanzania, all these fractured colonial identities born out of the Berlin Conference, as the councillor has said. So the other work is to also construct a unified identity around being African that has never been done before. Yeah, so the problem is not only losing the identity that is causing us to, you know, bleach our skin and get nose jobs and all this kind of stuff that is so un-African. The other challenge is to now begin to construct what it means on a holistic level to be African, because that has never been done before in history. Pre-colonial, we were tribal. We were communal, but we were tribes, the Ottomans, Songhai, Empire of Mali, yeah? There was no unified African states, yeah? So we've got two jobs, but I think it's very, very simple. Number one, decide who we want to be, and number two, build the education systems to get it.
Just like to do a side plug of BVL fundraising for the UK's first Black History Museum, Library and School for the UK and Europe. I think everything that you've just said, Nigel, is amazing. And I don't know where you've been, but I would definitely like to hear more from you. Just amazing. I could really hear you talk for a long time. This is why we need this space, because for me personally, I have a son, and Angela, Rudy, everyone here tonight has a story, and I'm sure in just their little finger has accomplished so much. And me as a mum raising the next generation, I don't get to see my leaders, my celebrities here in front of me. I know they're very humble, Angela and Rudy, they're terribly humble. But in my eyes, my son needs to see people like Angela and Rudy. We need to see them out there because the next generation is imprinting. Where they're imprinting on, oh, I can do that too. Oh, wow, this person did this. It's really important. And these schools is, you know, having those Black history schools or supplementary schools, however you want to label them, is really important. On a Sunday, I run a Black history school, but I use the arts to teach Black history. And it's been well attended, not just by Black children, but by everybody, because Black history is everybody's history. It's important that we all learn it to move forward together. You know, education is power. And I really do believe that, you know, funding should go into spaces that support our culture, because it's not just about the present and having a monument. It's about teaching the next generation, and not just the culture, not just the people, the culture, not just teaching the people connected to the culture, but about those around as well, because it's important to them as well, because we all have a connected journey. We're all on this planet, brothers and sisters. So we, you know, our stories, yes, we have our countries and our own specific cultures, but they're all connected, and we can't move forward without knowing about the other. You know, one of the other things I'm interested in is Chinese culture, and looking back at their history. They have so much African history in their history. Some may deny it, but yes, you two are Black, son. You know, back in their history. So it's just really important. I really believe in schools and education for children, just learning about Black history. So I'm really, thank you for that contribution, Nigel.
Yeah, just to add to that, Michaela, there's an old Japanese saying: to be a good samurai, you must have a bit of Black blood.
Michaela,
Really?
I was just thinking, Michaela, when you were speaking about where investments should go and funding and stuff like that, and I was just thinking, yeah, we used to have a supplementary school years ago in Watford. My daughter attended it when she was in primary school, but it lost its funding, and then another kind of school started up along the way. But what I was actually thinking is there is something about the older generation passing on, you know, the story to the next generation. There's Africans, we are known for folklore, for stories, you know, and this is how we pass on our traditions. Maybe those of us that grew up back in the African continent, we have these experiences much more. Because I can tell you, stories of my grandfather, my grandmom, and I know the history of my entire generation, so to say. But my daughter hardly knows anything like that.
It
So
needs to be recorded. It needs to be recorded.
I'm just wondering, is there a way of us coming together as a people, and you know, and telling those folk stories that our parents told us in the evenings in the veranda when we are eating, at the communities coming together, telling all those stories, and you know, you are proud of who you are, your identity, you know where you're rooted. I know how my great grandfather fought in the Second War. I know everything, you know, but my daughter doesn't know. So is there a way for us to come together and begin to pass on these things to the next generation, and they hear it directly from us?
Absolutely. There's either, in my opinion, practically, we get together our own space, get together £5 million and we have our own space and we record those and we have it like a library documented. People come in, they write in and they document it, or we use whatever resources that are out there now. The libraries that are there now, we say to them, look, in your library, you have, libraries have them now where they have storages of recordings of certain things, but as they store like papers from different years, it could be recordings. A Black history, they should have a Black history section. So when people come in, there's an actual library in Hertfordshire, I don't know if it's still there, and it's dedicated to performing arts. Literally any book that you want, it's a huge building, and you can find any book on performing arts, any play, any, you know, it's dedicated to performing arts. Why can't there be something like that for Black history?
No, I'm actually talking more about events, because sometimes the younger generations, the way they learn is different. I'm just talking of events that will appeal to them, that will make it much more fun and practical.
Okay,
you know.
sorry. I thought you were talking about recording, having it.
I'm talking of events for the younger generation. Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
You talked about folklore, but many of us in this room today will know the story of Anansi the spider. So can we not start telling our children a story about Anansi? Because my grandmother, my aunt would make up a story about Anansi, and so we are the storytellers. We are the next generation. So surely we should be recording that for ourselves, making our oral histories. And we start with Anansi the spider, because whether you're in Africa, the Caribbean, or any of the Caribbean islands, Anansi is Anansi. He's good or bad, whatever you want it to be. He can be male and he can be female. Sure. Yes. Am I correct?
Yeah, a lot to chew on, a lot to think about. So honestly, I've been really, it's been something that's been bothering me, because I'm seeing the next generation, our children, and they don't just know who they are.
No,
it's really painful.
Councillor Favour, can I ask, these events, I have a little qualm about events.
Tell me.
So I enjoy a shindig at these events. You know there's going to be food at a black ting, as we call it in the Caribbean. You know there's going to be food. You know there's going to be dancing. When there's someone saying there's a black anything, I am there. Even if the food is bad, leaving a majority white area, they say something's black happening, I am there. Okay. However, when the day has passed, all that greatness gets lost. I hear a great story. They have wonderful people like Angela Clarke, Rudy, Nigel Stewart, whoever coming, name these named people, PhD. I'm like, where did they get these black people from with all these PhDs? What? I'm going down there. But after the day is gone, there's no storage. There's no so when my son gets to my age, he's like, oh, there's no black people, and you have to go searching.
Yeah.
I want a place where I can find out about Councillor Favour, Nigel, Angela, all these people. I want a place where I can, because otherwise there's going to, in a few years, there's going to be,
right.
Do you see what I mean? There needs to be somewhere where we can see the achievements. It can't be just, I'm just doing it, for the community. It's great. It's wonderful. And yes, that is definitely the heart you should have. But the next generation, we need to see and we need to learn from you guys. That's just my only thing.
Are you counting yourself out, Michaela?
Right? Look, I'm just saying that, look, once the food is done and my belly is empty the following day, is I want to have somewhere to go back and teach my son the greatness that
No, I agree with you. I'm just kind of looking at how to engage, to even to attract them first, and then we can document all that. But just that interface, you know, that I'm looking at, like, I mean, in Watford, you know how we are in Watford. Even our website is busy with everything we're doing, but still we're not really attracting the younger generation the way we should, and that's what's bothering me. Yeah.
I with BVL, I find that if you speak their language, they just generally come, and they speak very. I think with human beings, I've kind of treated them like watching David Attenborough. Actually, if you give an animal what they want, it's about need. It's not that they don't want to connect; it's that they haven't found an avenue to connect.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm looking at all these organizations all over the UK, West Indian here in Birmingham, organization, Afro-Caribbean this, and the language they're speaking and how they're interacting is not how the youth interact today.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's and I have to, just a little qualm. I know I'm hearing a lot from the leaders that, oh, you know, we're old, we're just not you're not old though. I don't think it's you're not old. Look at all the crisp melanin I'm seeing here. It's not that. It's just finding out. It's just a different language, learning how they communicate, how they interact, because it's not the same. In my generation, my parents could sit me down and say, Michaelia, this is how you do things. Look, that first sentence, you've lost the youth. It needs to be quick, snappy, you know, something that they don't have to spend time on. In my generation, you're expected to spend time because that's how you show respect. But the new generation they just don't, you know, my sister, even she tells me off. She gives me tips on BVL on how I do things because she's like, Michaelia, you're writing too much. Just write 2 sentences. I was bored after the first word. She wants to learn about Black history, but she doesn't want to read. So I have to kind of I know it sounds silly because most of us are well educated and have written probably papers and papers and papers, but we've just got to speak their language. So that's my thing.
Can I build on that very quickly, sister? So to me, this is a point of policy. Actually, this is about understanding that first of all, that number one, the way in which we are in this structure, this system of white supremacy, there's no utility in inheriting Africanness, right? There's no utility in that. So if someone goes to do an African studies degree or program as a child or at school, you can't take that to an employer and earn money. Yeah. So that's one problem. We have to solve the issue of what's in it for our young people at the end, right? It's like being in the Matrix. You can see you're in the Matrix, but actually it's comfortable in the Matrix and you can still eat steak rather than fight the Matrix and be Neo outside of it and die, right? A bit like that scenario. The other point of legislation I think we need to tackle is in this country, you cannot have racially based schools. It's illegal, right? That's how the supplementary school movement ended. Because the government can stop you from teaching Black people exclusively. You can have faith-based schools, so you can have people in the church, a school that's based on the indigenous culture and exclusively teach those children. That to me needs to be challenged. Now, one of my researchers, he grew up in Sweden, right? And in Sweden, they have a policy whereby if you are an immigrant, when you go to primary school, from primary school, you are also assigned a cultural teacher to teach you your indigenous language. Yeah. So he grew up not only learning Swedish, English, but he also learned his indigenous language. And that's the way we need to approach this. We shouldn't be saying, well, why is it on our youth coming? We should be thinking of ways in which our youth can have, as Marcus Garvey said in his book, Message to the People, universal knowledge and cultural knowledge at the same time simultaneously. Yeah. They have to learn math, science, technology, all the STEM subjects, but they also need the cultural learning simultaneously. That's the way in which you build personhood in the African culture, and you build the humanity in our children. Void of that, they can have the knowledge, but they can't apply it because they don't have the self-esteem and the identity to assert themselves in the global marketplace. So these are the issues of policy that us who have been around the block, and Rudy and others have been around the block a few times, need to start advocating for. But I'm afraid we're not doing that.
Nigel, can I ask, if you don't mind, could you mention your organisation? If that's is it from are you from an organisation, or is it no?
Yeah, so I own a school called the Centre of Pan-African Thought. Yeah, so we do adult education based in Pan-Africanism. Yeah, so it's not child education, which is what we're talking about, I presume, right? But there are others. So if you go to the Association of Black Supplementary Schools, Nia, who has a website that lists all the supplementary schools in and around London, he's always, those kind of resources are critical. Yeah, I only heard of this because I live locally, right? But this needs to be built, this network needs to be built so all of us have access. And access is another really big problem, because I didn't live in London for a long time, and I always found it really challenging to go to school and travel on the train to go to sessions and discussions, and people like Robin Walker when they were teaching, and I couldn't get to it on a Thursday, Tuesday night when I was living in St Albans, So what I'm saying is that building out a network, challenging on the policy level, and helping build the infrastructure, the soft infrastructure for our children, means that we don't have to answer the question of what happens when they're 13, 14, and we're first introducing them to an African history book. That's way too late. Yeah, they've already been socialized by then. Yeah, we need to make sure that the infrastructure is in place for them to be taught language, philosophy, history from a very, very early age in the very schools that they're in. Yeah, that's the challenge. Sorry to say.
I'll say Sweden has always have something in place, very, very straightforward, and they're always forward thinking than us for some reason. They always have things decent. Isn't that right? I mean, but I think the other situation I was trying to mention, in terms of my experiences with between African in the Caribbean, I was with an African guy that I've used to work with, and then his friend came over. He saw I was buying some Afro-Caribbean food. We're talking about that. We had so much in common, and then he says we got into a conversation about what race would you go for? Would you marry? I said, well, that doesn't come to it, I'll marry anybody, any race. I don't see that's not a deal breaker for me. And he says, oh, you Caribbean people, you're just so weak. All of you are just so weak, you Caribbean people. I will always marry a Nigerian person. I said, well, that's you. That's what you want to do. Fine. I mean, I don't want to get any argument with them, but I think they get that kind of there's that kind of separation with that as well, because we, some people would like to go outside their race, and some people, want to stay within their race as well. So that comes into it, and maybe competing that we're better. Yes. We're the better half of the colonial system. We're closest to the Queen, I find, closest to the royal family. I think that's one of the. I don't know. I'm guessing that's the reason why there's some kind of separation between us.
Oh, you're cooking tomorrow?
Seriously?
Okay. Yeah, Mike. I think I got a cooker. Not a cooker.
You're sharing all your household duties.
Yeah.
Come
Can I
on,
come
man.
for dinner?
Will I come for dinner if you're cooking?
Yeah, me too. I'll be round.
Yeah, good night. Good night. Go to sleep.
Can the host
Good
not
night.
mute her?
Yeah.
Can you mute Galaxy A12?
So we're at 10 o'clock now.
Oh dear, guys, I've got to drop off.
I've got to go.
Okay, take care.
It's been wonderful. Thank you guys for.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Good to meet you all.
Yeah,
Take
definitely.
care.
Forward to
Bye.
future
Very much.
part 2.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
And take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.